Hey guys, this is the first video I'm recording, so if it goes a little rough, that is why I'm blaming it on that. Today's lesson is over linear equations and being able to solve. This first unit, we're going to be looking at just being able to solve many different types of equations as we get going with pre-calc A. So first up, a linear equation. Linear equation is going to be anything that can be written in the form ax plus b equals 0. I know a lot of times you're used to seeing that a as, feel free to substitute that in if you need to. But a and b are going to be real constants, and we're going to call this a linear equation or first degree equation, first degree polynomial. All will be fair game for me to call. Just as a review from Algebra 1, these are all of your properties of equality. I'm not too worried about the ones down here at the bottom of the page, but the first four we're going to be using today. First up is the addition property. It says that if you add c to one side of the equation, you better make sure you add c to the other side of the equation. And the same is true for subtraction and multiplication and even division. If I'm going to divide c on one side, I need to make sure I divide c on the other side as well, as long as c is not 0, of course. So let's put these to work. I'm going to start with some pretty basic ones. And again, my goal is to solve for x. Whenever I solve for x, I'm getting x on a side by itself and telling you what it is equal to. So I'm going to start off this one by subtracting 3x on both sides. Whenever I do on one side, I have to do on the other. And then simply add 9 to both sides. That gives me 2x equals 16, and x is equal to 8. I can definitely check this by plugging x back into my equation, and it would give it so that both sides of that equation is the same number. First step on this one on the right here is actually going to be combine like terms. Be careful, do not add p to both sides of the equation because I have like terms to combine on the same side of the equation. I can have the same thing to do over here. 2 minus 20 gives me negative 18. I'm going to use a little bit different notation on this to make it look a little bit more concise. So I'm going to subtract 2p from both sides. I'm going to put an s, 2p. Subtract 2p. And that just leaves me with p right there. Now I can add 11 to both sides. And I have arrived at my final answer. P equals negative 7. In your homework, you're going to have some dreaded fractions and decimals in there. I'm going to talk to you on this slide how we can get rid of those. What I want to do is I'm going to look at each one of these denominators right here. Even if I want to throw that 1 underneath that 7 right there, I can look at that denominator as well. And what I want to do is I want to ask myself, what is the smallest thing that goes into all 3 of those denominators, or in this case 4. Now look at it in 6. All those numbers will multiply into 6 and be a factor of 6. So now I'm just going to distribute that 6 through all 4 of these terms. And that should make it so it looks like something I had on the last slide. So 2/3 of 6 is 4. 7 times 6, we have a big number, 42. 1/3 of 6 is 2. And then 1/6 times 6, which is 1. So I'm going to add my x over. That gives me 5x. And then 5x minus 42 is equal to 2. Add 42 to both sides. I get 5x equals 44. Not a nice number on this one, that's okay. I get 44 over 5 for my final answer. This example on the right side, there's a couple different ways I can start this. A lot of people are going to say, well, I'm just going to multiply everything by 100. Just make sure if you multiply everything by 100, you just multiply what's outside of parentheses by 100. Because if I multiply this 25 hundredths by 100 right here on the left, and then everything that's inside parentheses multiply it by 100, I'm going to end up distributing through 10,000 on that. That's way too much. Okay. So I think we're going to have a lot less mistakes if we go ahead and do our distribution first. So this is just going to be an f right here, 1f minus 0.75 equals 50 hundredths F minus 45 hundredths. So if I subtract off 50 hundredths F, it's going to leave me with the 50 hundredths on this side, minus the 75 hundredths equals negative 45 hundredths. So I just need to add that 75 hundredths over. Divide both sides by 50 hundredths. And I don't know where this random F came from right here. I get F is equal to this. So it can be done, as you can see, without having to worry about getting rid of the decimals. Let me show you how to get rid of those decimals, though, in case that's wigging you out. You don't want to work it that way. I can work it very similarly. What I want to do is I want to see how many decimal places I need to get rid of. In this case, it's 2. So if I multiply everything by 100, it should get rid of the 2 decimal places, and I have very similar math to work. Now I don't have to worry about the decimals. Math looks the exact same, just without the decimals flying around. I did have this extra 100 right here, but that will go away. Add 75 to both sides. That'll be 30. So F will have to be 3/5. A couple more. I want to step it up just a little bit more. This one I threw an X down in the denominator. So again, my common denominator is going to be something that 7 and 1 and X all go into. In this case, it's just going to happen to be 7X. Now watch this distribution. If I distribute this, that's going to give me 35X over X, which is just 35. So another way to think of it is these X's will just cancel, and I can just do 5 times 7 minus. Now the X comes back into play. 7 times 13 should be 91X. And then 4 sevenths times 7X. Well, this time the 7's cancel. I have 4 times X. Since I already have 35 on the left side by itself, I'm just going to leave it over here, and I'm going to add 91X to both sides. Divide both sides by 95. I do believe that gives me like 7/19ths for my answer. I think the one on this left side is just a little bit more difficult. First thing I'm going to do on this left side is to factor out that 2 that's on that middle one. Now I can see the smallest factor that goes into, that all these go into. Another way to look at it is, well, the y plus 3 has to be represented. So that's going to be one of my least common factors. And then the 2 has to be represented. And so everything that's in the denominator now has been represented somewhere in that equation. So I want to distribute this through. Well, 1 times anything is just itself. Okay. Here, all of this cancels. If I take 5 divided by this mess and then multiply it by the same mess, it just gives me 5. On this one, the y plus 3's cancel. So I'm just left with 3 times 2 is 6. I'm going to go ahead and distribute through my 2. Let's see, this is just going to give me a 1, so this is 2y plus 1 equals 6. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And divide by 2, I get y equals 5 halves, 2.5, 2.5, any of those answers are fine on this one. The last part of your homework is going to want you to solve in terms, it's going to have 2 variables in it. It's going to want you to solve for one of the variables in terms of the remaining variables. For instance, this is the formula for converting Fahrenheit to Celsius. Well, suppose I have a friend over in Europe somewhere that wants me to give him a formula for Celsius to Fahrenheit. So what I would do on this is I would want to undo everything until this F is on the side by itself. Well, first order of business, I see that everything's being multiplied by 5 nines on this side. So to get rid of that 5 nines, I'm going to divide both sides by 5 nines. I know that dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to change that 5 nines to a 9/5. I have 9/5 C. Well, getting that F by itself now, all I got to do is add 32 to both sides. So I get 9/5 C plus 32 is equal to F. And this would be my answer. It's not solved for anything. We're not just going to get one number. We're just going to be rewriting the equation they give me so that I only have one variable, whatever variable they ask for, on one side of the equation. One more. This is some sort of interest formula. Me being able to find the interest. And so it says solve in terms of P. Well, I can't just pick a P and solve for it. If I'm solving in terms of P, I'm allowed to have P by itself on one side, and there's not allowed to be that principal P on the other side of the equation. So first order of business is to make it so this goes down to a single P on this right side rather. So I see that it's a common factor on both, and if I pull out a common factor, I've got not only a much easier problem, but I've also only got one P to solve for. This P is being multiplied by the quantity 1 plus RT. So the opposite of multiplying by 1 plus RT is dividing both sides by 1 plus RT. That would be my answer. That's it for today.